we're missing the fact that Joe Mixon took issue with the way he was utilized in Cincinnati, right? And also mainly the way he was treated in Cincinnati, which
Mhm.
I personally think speaks to a little bit of a disconnect. Um I don't really care about whether why he was traded or he should have been here or whatever the case may be. That conversation has come and gone for me. To me, it speaks to um it's a bigger issue. It's how your head coach is viewed amongst the locker room. Regardless, people think Joe Mixon was viewed as a locker room leader
Yeah.
on this team, and people could try to spin it whichever way they want. He was beloved by his teammates. He was beloved by his teammates, and now the Bengals lack real leadership. That's not to say that they should have kept him. That's not to say any of that, but that is to say what did that do to the locker room? Because the locker room definitely noticeably looks a little bit more fractured, which is why you have the coach going out there doing things such as, "Hey, we're going to bring back ping pong tables and all this kind of stuff like that
Mhm.
to implement that culture. We're going to get together more as a team and have more team camaraderie." You notice that there's things that mess up if a player messes up on the sideline. There's not that leader that's talking them through. It's Joe Burrow usually going off sitting by himself with the iPad in his hands. Um, you don't really have someone kind of galvanizing the troops saying, "Hey, we got to get this thing going," right? And I think that there's a real leadership you lack when it comes to that. Joe Mixon's gone though. Nothing's going to change that. But I will say some of the dents in the armor that we've seen, um, uh, some of the dents in the armor that we've seen, if you will, such as players arguing on the sideline, Trey Hendrickson slapping Zach Taylor's hand down, players speaking out more so in the media. What does that? What do you guys make of that from a leadership standpoint, from a head coach? Right. For me, I think that speaks to a guy that probably the honeymoon phase has been over for this team, but the Super Bowl lore that came with that is kind of wearing off as well. People are now looking at you like, "What have you done lately?" And if you want to gain respect in this league, you have to win. You have to put up wins, and you have to put up or shut up. I think that's the bigger conversation here that needs to be talked about. It's not about the fact that Joe Mixon would have done anything whether differently when he was here in Cincinnati. Since I think Chase Brown honestly fits the system a lot better. I think the reason why the Bengals don't overly have a dominant run game, no matter who the running back is because of their lack of consistency with choosing the run game and allowing the run game to kind of propel them forward. I think that's more of a fundamental issue, and I don't think no matter who the offensive line coach, whether it be Frank Pollock or Jim Turner, whoever you bring in here, I don't know if that really changes because I just don't think that that's how Zach Taylor calls his games. But I think that more so this speaks to a leadership deficiency from the head coach. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, and even Jacqueline Hyde kind of made a good point. Said, is it weird to kind of think that this may be Mixon kind of helping out his teammates still here by saying what he did? Like, he's in a spot where he can say these things and put pressure for change subtly. I don't necessarily know if that was his thought process, but I think that there is a world where, like you said, look at why didn't Joe Mixon say what he said? How does Joe Mixon feel about the Bengals? I'm sure he doesn't feel great about them,
Mhm.
right? So I think that could show how
Well,
he
he said he had a
views.
lot of love for the Bengals. Let's be
Okay.
clear. He said they have a lot of love for the Bengals. It's more so just the way he was treated by the media, he says, and he said the way he was utilized here. And I want to get to one quick thing. Jared Gundler says the reason they do not have a good running game is because inside offensive line suspect. Yes, which speaks to a greater issue. The Bengals refuse to really go all in and pay ridiculous amounts of money for elite guard play. They will never view the guard position as they view the tackle position. They'll never pay double digits for guard play for some of these elite guards. I see even people out there fantasizing for a Trey Smith thing. That's not happening because the type of money he's going to command in free agency is going to be well over the market price the Bengals are willing to pay. So when you look at it from that perspective, the conclusion comes down to they settle for guys like a Cordell Volson or like a Alex Kappa, who's good but average, if you will, and guys they don't have to go out there and pay ridiculous amount of money for. So therefore, you always will get average guard play, which might affect the way that you call the game when you're actually on the football field, which makes you think maybe, hey, we're not going to line up under center. It's not because our quarterback doesn't necessarily love it, and he probably doesn't love it, but that speaks to a greater issue. Why doesn't he love it? No player just to say I don't like turning my back to the defense. It's because hey, I might be worried about my guard play. I might be worried about what's coming after I turn my back to that defense. So I think it speaks to a greater issue. It's a fundamental issue that shows, the lack of urgency of we want to pay elite money for guard play happens on the football field, right? It affects the football field, and then it affects the coaching to some degree.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that that's kind of where this whole Joe Mixon thing is like, it's clear right now with the Bengals, and we haven't obviously dove into it this show, but it's clear that the Bengals have a locker room problem right now. And it's not like this is, I've seen even some Bengals fans trying to defend that, oh, there is no problems in the locker room. Bringing the ping pong tables back, all this stuff, they know that there is a problem in the locker room. Like I feel like that's as clear as day. They know that there's, Jamar Chase speaking out. They know Joe Burrow is frustrated. You're trying to do everything to get back in the good graces of your players, and you just need to get wins on the board. But like you were talking about with Joe Mixon, I think that Mixon just had, whether he's not a fan of Zach Taylor or whether he's not a fan of Duke Tobin, I don't know. But I think that it's clearly something that the players feel about this coaching staff and the way things are being handled, that is, they feel like it's on them versus it's on the
Yeah.
players.
Yeah.
And that's just where my thought process with this.
Man, I appreciate that, Dan. I appreciate the conversation we're having too, man.